This is day 1004. 1004, and we still haven't heard from Governor Abbott. We still haven't heard from DA um, Bill Hicks. We haven't heard from Veronica Escobar. We haven't heard from AG Jaime Esparza or Greg McDonald or Ian Hanna or there's another one, Steve, is it? The AUSAs there in El Paso about our missing, murdered son, active duty U.S. Army, right there at Fort Bliss, and hiding his remains from us because they didn't want another Vanessa Guillen. They did not want another Vanessa Guillen. So everything is, it's you're like in Twilight Zone when you think of our agencies, our Department of Defense, doing something this diabolical. But that's where we're at. That's where we're at. And because we have gotten these leaks, and I just want to say thank you so much to those that have provided the leaks. We were asked by the CID, the Criminal Investigative Division there at Fort Bliss, with Richard's command, Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe, to bring them leads. Okay, to bring them leads. And they made us the investigators of our son's case. And we kept bringing them leads. They decided to put Richard in cold case. Now, you have to remember what they did at the beginning. And this live stream is called a Whistleblower Retaliation. So the Whistleblower Retaliation is so severe today. They send a message to anybody that wants to stop the crime, stop the contagion, stop the pollution, stop the decay of our institutions. They want to send a message to anyone that wants to do some good, okay? Because they're up to no good. And that is retaliation, total destruction. And Richard absolutely was retaliated against. He was a whistleblower for many different things. We're getting more and more information as we prepare for the meeting tomorrow. And they know that we know. They know that we know that they had 36 days to collude and decide and to hide the remains of our son. They had 36 days to figure out how this was not going to be that, meaning Vanessa Guillen's accountability, the fallout. The 14, I have it right here, the 14 U.S. Army leaders that were removed, that happened in December of 2020. Okay. So, everything, the bomb hit at the very beginning of July when they announced on July 7th that the remains that they had just found in the foxhole, cut up, burnt, she was dismembered and burnt and put into that foxhole with lime and concrete on it, were indeed Vanessa Guillen's. And there was fallout. Okay, July, could you imagine what July was about? Because number one, the main objective for July 2020 was to get everyone to lockstep with the COVID agenda. Okay, that was number one. They did not care if maybe you had concerns, be it religious concerns or your own personal health concerns, to what they wanted you to do. They didn't care. They did not care about individual needs or the faith of individual people. So, or even the socialization, the damage that they were initiating to cause socially, mentally, um, with elderly, with family members, not going to weddings, not going to funerals, not going to see your loved ones that might be in institutions, the children going to school, having to worry, being taught lies, absolute lies when it came to the COVID agenda. And now we know that they were lies. Now we know. And I think that is some comfort to many. And please let your children know, so that they can be comforted too, that they were lied to, and tell them the truth so that they can go on and have a healthy and beautiful life, socializing with others without fear. So, that was the huge agenda at that time that we were up against. And so they used that to delay and as an excuse to pay attention to Richard's case, outwardly. Underneath, in the dark, they were conspiring and colluding together how to hide Richard's remains that they were finding, and all of the information about this brutal murder, the investigation of the brutal murder. So this is absolutely what we have been leaked, and it needs to all be confirmed. And now that we have that information, the CID there at Quantico is taking him out of cold case for an investigation forward. That is what we've been led to believe. We've been lied to in the past, so we might be lied to again. And I shouldn't say lie, I should say they've misrepresented, they've misstated, they've misled us. In the past, they could mislead us now. So why do I want to talk about the whistleblowing? The whistleblowing status of Richard is very, very important because in none of the meetings, none of the communications that we had, once Rob called and we were given the news that Richard was a deserter and they kicked us out, they kicked him off the rolls, and then they decided that, okay, maybe that wasn't so good. Maybe we need to control the narrative. They're getting too much traction in the civilian world with the social media. We should bring that back, and because there might be leaks. If they get too much traction, they could get leaks. And we could have got leaks early on, I believe, but they took Richard back on the rolls. And so he went missing July 23rd. It took them until November 25th to designate him as CONUS One Missing Soldier. CONUS One Missing Soldier. So here I've got this beautiful picture here of him. This is when he was, let's see, basic training picture. Basic training picture. Yeah. Great picture there. He was a distinguished honor graduate for basic training and advanced individual training for his cycle. He was so excited and he wanted to do some good. And he got to Delta Battery 143 ADA there at Fort Bliss, and they were up to no good. And he was deployed to Qatar for 10 months. And he had told us there that he had made the wrong decision by joining the military, and they were just up to no good. They were really, really bad, Mom. They're really bad. It's just so bad. So he just wanted to do his time and get out. So from going that I want to be green to gold, I want to be an officer, I want to aspire in the military, to, oh my gosh, I don't want to be any part of this. It's so bad. Going from being with my parents, so happy. He was so happy. He was distinguished honor graduate, and the drill sergeant was talking to my dad, and they were just so excited, to I'm counting the days till I get out. So, but what he saw must have been really bad. And he must have suffered, because the leaks, we're getting the leaks out. What was in the CID? See, Richard made a CID, official CID complaint. We didn't know that until just now, until this last couple weeks. We thought that he had made an IG complaint, and they came back and said he didn't make an IG complaint. They withheld information because they absolutely knew that Richard made a CID complaint. He complained to the CID. And we're also getting information that there was not just one bad apple in the CID there at Fort Bliss, but two. Okay? Two possible with conflicts of interest. And this is very, very important information going forward for tomorrow. So that we're just getting. And we have papers and papers and papers of irregularities, of hard facts, of, let's just say, miscommunication, misstatements to us. So misinformation, let's say that much. We have stacks of papers of this case. We have everything. That I've been saying that for, we have everything, and it's so convoluted, and we're organizing it, and we're putting it all together. And you know, that's why at the very beginning I was like, oh my gosh, we have so much stuff. I need to make a book. I need to make a book so I can keep up with it all. And it's changed and changed and changed. And now we have found out that because Richard was a whistleblower, and that they were up to no good, and he had many different reasons to be a whistleblower, and that he complained to the CID, and he was assigned, this is what the leaks are telling us, he was assigned Special Agent Tavita Nusa over his CID complaint. And that, you know, that he had a conflict of interest. He had a conflict of interest because, you see, this is a huge problem. Right there at Fort Bliss, you have established El Pasoans working there in the Army and in the law enforcement there. So he had family and close relations right there in Richard's unit. Okay? And I maintain, until they tell me it's not true, but the leaks are telling me that Dallas Hart was in Delta Battery 143. Okay? I have too much information that's telling me that. And what Dallas Hart has given us is not good enough as far as it's not official. Okay? Nothing is official. And why would you want to clear everything off when it comes to your military career, your service? Why is that all wiped clean? Why is everything reorganized and everything? We don't have anything official, but we do have witness testimony, and we do have the leaks telling us that he absolutely was Delta Battery 143, the same as Richard. And he had relations with a person, well, his mother, that had relations then with a CID agent, family relations, and more, a very close relationship. And so this was a conflict of interest. If Richard was reporting things that had to do with Dallas Hart, that would not be good. That would not be good to be assigned to Vita Nusa, right? And so we have found out that Tavita Nusa absolutely betrayed Richard's whistleblowing status, took away his protection, which what that does is it puts a target on that person's back. It puts them in danger, just like we've been put in danger by making us the investigators of our son's murder. And the retaliation began. And the retaliation was very, very severe and continuous for, I would say at least from January to July. From January to July. And that's why things started to happen in the beginning of March. Richard was in the hospital with this mark here. I always said that is a fight wound. And it was not what Jay Paulin said. It was a fight wound. It was part of a retaliation. And the Gomar from Major General Clem Coward, that is very shallow and weak with nothing to back it up, is also retaliation, and he made it permanent, which was an extra dose of retaliation. And they started the chaptering procedures. So Richard was getting out, but they didn't stop there. They gave him an Article 15, a field grade Article 15 with maximum punishment, which means taking 3 ranks away from him at one time. What does that do? Well, let's say if you're in a leadership position, because Richard had told me he was like the acting squad leader. And if that was, I don't think that was his official position, but he told me, he's acting like he's the squad leader. And of course he was guidon bearer. And if you take the 3 ranks away, that opens you up for hazing. It opens you up for harassment. It opens you up for bullying. Absolutely. And they took 50% of his pay away. They really gave him the 45 days of extra duty. So it was maximum punishment. Then they added that he would have to wear his full body gear, battle gear, during those 45 days, and that he would also have to wear the COVID mask, right? So, and this is in May and June in El Paso, Texas, in the desert. Very hot. And this was heavy retaliation. Now, some people would say, wait a minute, why did he get that Article 15? Why did they do that to him? He must have had to do something really bad, especially a Gomar with that. It made the Gomar permanent, and also chaptering, and the chaptering lasting. He was in the 4th month of his chaptering. which that in itself is torture and punishment, opened up for a retaliation in the form of bullying and hazing, and they just wanted to give it to him. They wanted to destroy him. They wanted to burn him. They wanted to burn him. They wanted to smoke him. And so you ask, what did he do? Well, he had one counseling slip for 0.04 BAC. So that means underage drinking. He was 20 years old, and he had an underage drinking counseling slip for a breathalyzer test for 0.04. 0.8, I think it is 0.08 would be considered drunk. Okay, 0.08. He had 0.04. Okay, now they use that for the GOMAR, but they used a DUI, a parking lot DUI that he was in dispute with there in El Paso, a 1.15, I believe. No, 0.115 BAC. Okay. And it was right across the street from Buffalo Soldiers Gate. And I'm like, okay, fine. He needs to get in trouble. But you don't get a permanent GOMAR for that. Okay. You don't get chaptered out of the Army for that when you don't even have a counseling slip for it. And you know, where is the write-up on it? And then it's not even a finished case. He hasn't been declared guilty. Matter of fact, the case was dismissed. The case was dismissed. So, because he was in the vehicle in the parking lot, and a fight broke out, and he drove from one parking lot to the next. So, you know, you're going to smoke a soldier that badly for that? And there's no regular, company grade Article 15 there. Why did they skip the company grade Article 15? So if you're military, you understand what I'm saying. For us, it was very confusing because at the time we did not know that he was a whistleblower, and he was a whistleblower for child abuse, child sex abuse, child pornography, also sexual assault, and there's more, y'all. There's more. The leaks are coming out, but these are things that we know because we were told that he made the reports to Child Protective Services. He turned in sex videos. He went to the CID. They didn't do anything. So he went to the Child Protective Services, and he said the CID didn't do anything. So I had to come here. And he was reporting on a soldier up to no good with a child. And so he was retaliated against severely. And who participated in the retaliation? Well, we know that Major General Clem Coward participated in the major retaliation. We know that Captain David Park participated in the retaliation. We know that Lieutenant Colonel Roddick participated in the destruction of the waterless waterboarding. And, so in all of this, Richard did not have any due process, right? He did not have anyone on his side because Tavita Nusa had doxed him, had illegally exposed him. So that was his protection was gone there. And then he had no due process It doesn't even look like he had a lawyer. And here you're going to give someone a permanent GOMAR. You're going to give someone a take away 3 ranks from them, and you're not even providing a lawyer. And so that's kind of what they've done to us. The retaliation just continues. And why? Because Richard was reporting those crimes in the unit. And when you have child sex trafficking and child production of child pornography, when you have sexual abuse, especially during the COVID, then you have the fallout of Vanessa Guillen. Vanessa Guillen was all about sexual assault and sexual harassment, and so they did not want another Vanessa Guillen. And we have information about I don't know if I even should say it, how they got him out of the barracks. It seems to be because he was in uniform. How did they get him out of the barracks in uniform? And I'll probably save that for tomorrow. We'll see what they have to say to us because it is really, really shocking. And maybe they'll come clean. I doubt it. I doubt they'll come clean. But I'll be praying all night for the CID there in Quantico, for our military leadership, for our service members, that they will come clean. Because all the leaks that we are getting, it's fitting all together what happened. And they planned this, y'all. The retaliation was part of the plan. And it continued because it was a message to everybody. You want to know why our soldiers live in fear? You want to know why our service members live in fear? You want to know why the PTSD is so bad? You want to know why the suicide rate is so high? You want to know why the drug overdose rate is so high? That the drug use, the illegal drug use is so high? That the sexual harassment, sexual assaults just continue and continue? It's a failed program. If you want to know why, it's because they have sent a clear message of any whistleblower that you will be severely and continuously retaliated against, and if need be, silenced forever. Silenced forever. And they decided that Richard needed to be silenced forever, that getting out of the army would give him power to report to the authorities what they were doing. And they decided to silence him forever. And they planned it out. And that's why the Red Rio Range was ideal. That's why another place was ideal. And that's why I think they made a mistake with Mexico, but they did it because of their special essential pass that allowed them and their connections to travel back and forth over the border. Also, the whole Vanessa thing was shaking up the CID badly, and also the top leadership badly. Okay? They saw their fellow sexual assault leaders, pro-sexual assault leaders, lose their jobs. They saw accountability for the first time in a very, very long time with Vanessa Guillen. You had 14 U.S. Army leaders lose their job. And Um, so I think they miscalculated, but they wanted to cover all their bases. They did not want Richard's body, his remains, to be in one location. They dismembered him, they cut him asunder, they divided him, and they put him in different locations after they brutally murdered him, silencing him forever and sending a message to any other service member that wanted to be a whistleblower. This is what you get. So the whistleblower retaliation is very, very real. And I feel a need to pray for the IRS agent that wants to come out and get whistleblower protection for the Hunter Biden's crimes and alleged crimes, but we know they're crimes. I mean, come on, y'all. You're innocent until proven guilty. Um, I know that is true, and that makes America great. But let's hear it. Let's hear it, and let's have the trial, and let's decide, right? Why do they get such special? Why does everybody want to continue the rot, continue the decay, continue the pollution that is affecting our futures, our children, our small businesses, our economy, our progression into the future? It's the consequences of letting whistleblower retaliation continue is devastating to our country and to our national security. And so I really wanted to bring that up because there's some reason why Richard's DUI was dismissed when he was just missing. Okay? That's another indication that's, I believe, and I probably should have put it on my list tonight, but hard evidence that they got news that Richard is deceased. We also have the medical examiner's name, beginning with an R, the last name beginning with an O. So we're working on that, and we're really working on getting this meeting going. We won't be alone there. We will have someone that knows, an officer of the court that knows the law, that knows the position that we're in, and also that knows, that has an in with the federal courts. So that is officer of the court, and also federally. So that is very, very big news. And we are just really praying that they will come clean for Richard's sake, for our sake, for our service members' sake, for our country's sake, for our justice system's sake. And this will bring, I think, a lot of accountability to, first of all, I want to say, to cover up Veronica Escobar, who spends her time trying to send a message of her own with Jaime Esparza, that they, like to stage their little parades in front of the cameras, taking oaths to things to what they will break. They're going to break their oaths. They've broken their oath. It's very clear, and yet they parade around saying these oaths that they are so willing to break. It's it's the reason why we need to pray. And she has time to do that, but not time to speak about Richard being missing for 1,000 days. Because, see, she knows that Richard's remains have been found. They've been found dismembered, in partial form, in fragmented form, that the cause of death was sharp punctures, um, and we're figuring out more as we go. And it was because of whistleblower retaliation. And that it's also international because here he is in uniform, a U.S. Army soldier, whistleblower retaliation that went over to the border at kilometer 29 in Juarez, Mexico. And yeah, what can, how do you wrap your head around that? And then when we finally found out, they had already colluded, and never once did they say that Richard was a whistleblower and that this could possibly be whistleblower retaliation. And this was during Vanessa Guillen, who was whistleblower retaliation. So they were very afraid of that, and they didn't tell us that. Never in any of our meetings, never in that stage task force find Richard Halliday meeting. And it makes sense now why so many soldiers were shaking, why Command Sergeant Major Jakovitz was shaking, why they abandoned us. They abandoned us from the beginning, and had to kind of bring us back in, and then just try to work their evil narrative, and it didn't work. We had enough leaks, and the Dollar General man walked in and said, "You can take down those flyers. I'm with the FBI, and the FBI has found the remains of Richard in Juarez." And we got there, and we got that video footage of both the cashier and of him, and him going, "Shh, shh." Why is that a secret? That's huge, because it indicates that they were hiding the remains of Richard. And that, my husband said, "Don't forget when you were on the phone with him, he said he heard that information from a lieutenant colonel." So, yeah, that's hard facts. We lived it. We saw it. We have the video footage. I've put the video footage out there. The very next day, the FBI took over the investigation of Richard's case. So the leaks are telling us, and that is not a coincidence. That is not a coincidence. Yeah. I'm glad this is working today. I want to make sure that everyone can hear me, because yesterday it just all froze. It just all froze up. If you have any questions about the meeting tomorrow, we'll be meeting with the Quantico CID. We believe by their email that they sent us that they are taking Richard out of cold case, and they are moving the investigation forward. And that's what they want to talk to us about by appointing another special agent, but not just any special agent, someone whose entire career has been spent there. I think she's like equivalent to a two-star general, maybe higher. I don't know. I don't know. I don't have a lot of trust in it, because if they're hiding the remains of our son that they discovered in July of 2020 and in October of 2020, and they're hiding the remains from us. I mean, how cold-blooded and how evil can you be, right? So we'll listen to what they have to say and move forward. I would my request will be for my son's remains. That is what will be my request. Okay? Anicia, thank you so much. Grace, thank you so much. Jerry, thank you so much. Danielle, Grace, thank you. Prayers heading up for tomorrow. Thank you so much. It's been a really busy day, and please say some prayers for my mother. And yeah, for this meeting tomorrow, for the officer of the court, we need to pray for him. This is immense pressure, immense pressure, because not only do they retaliate against the whistleblowers, but after they've silenced them forever, they start retaliating against the family that wants to know what happened. And anybody else, Team 5 Richard Halliday, or an officer of the court that wants justice, that wants questions answered. And so this is an immense position of pressure. And so we just want to tell everyone thank you so much for your prayers going forward. And we're going to start a new campaign because the 1,000 letters for 1,000 days is what I think, with the prayer vigil and many other letters that went through, is what is taking Richard out of cold case or bringing on this meeting. So it was a huge success. So we're going to start another campaign, and this is about the media, because the media has abandoned us also. And if they can cover the things that they cover and not cover 1,000 days of a missing soldier that now the family has leaks, and that they're being ignored, that their son was brutally murdered and dismembered and laid to rest in many different parts of West Texas and in Juarez, crossing the border into Juarez. And that's very important, the crossing the border, because you had to be essential. And CID Special Agent Soto said he was essential. He could just wave his little card and he could go over. He could go anywhere he wanted because the CID agents were essential. So I think that's very important to know. I also think it's important to know that if you were LDS and you wanted to attend the temple there in Juarez and you lived in El Paso, you were also able to do that. You also would get a special pass, special permission to cross the border. So that is something else that I wanted to mention. I'm just not as talkative tonight because of trying to reflect on what's going to happen, what has happened in the past, to be prepared for the meeting, because the meetings have never produced anything except for misinformation, misleading us, telling us to bring them leads, making us our sons investigators, always full of abnormalities, irregular requests that never made sense to us. But now we're in a different situation because we have gotten these leaks, and the leaks have proven, if only a third of the leaks are accurate, you all, Richard still was absolutely brutally and viciously murdered and dumped. Okay? Silenced forever. If even a third of it, if even a fourth of it, there is no doubt in my mind that these autopsies, these findings, these witness accounts that we are getting in our leaks right now, and the massive amount of information about Tavita Nusa, about Dallas Hart, about Leilani Hart, about James Hart, about um, um, Belen Rocha, about Danae Katzen, about Jay Paulin, about Micah Brown, about Sarah, Deborah Sarah West, about um, so many, so many more. Clem Coward, about Clem Coward, Major General Clem Coward, um, about all these people, and I'm missing some names, and I'm just doing it off the top of my head, but all the information that we're getting in their roles that they played in this vicious crime, um, and the evidence. Um, Vehicles are involved, weapons are involved, blood is involved, DNA is involved, tampering with evidence is involved, not securing the crime scene is involved. There's just so much that we're getting that, and I have to say this loud, I have to be transparent because we've been made the investigators, which has put a target on our back, which has put us in a dangerous position, and we don't have DA Bill Hicks doing anything to aid us. We've been abandoned not only by the Department of Defense, by Richard's command, put into a dangerous situation with a target on our back, but we've been also abandoned by the DA, and also Jaime Esparza, who just said his oath again, and turns around and breaks his oath, and not is doing his job. And you have to remember that Richard is taken out of cold case and being put into death and violent crimes or violent murder. I think it's violent murder or violent crimes. Um, I think it's violent murder. So, what are they trying to tell us? And it's exactly what they were trying to tell us at the very beginning when they gave us a casualty assistance officer. And Jay Pollan was like, "What do you mean a casualty assistance officer? Is Richard dead?" Well, you should know, right? Um, he should know. He's first sergeant. First sergeant should know what's going on in that unit. I know he's retired, but he had close connections. Close connections, y'all. Very close connections. And even in the CID, okay? Even in the CID. So that was another conflict of interest. The CID was investigating their friend's unit. That's their relative's unit. That's a conflict of interest. And it's very, very important for me to say that because this is whistleblower retaliation to the extreme, to the absolute extreme. And anyone that knows me knows that if Richard was doing something wrong, I would be absolutely, great. He needs to be punished for that. But this was not that. This was whistleblower retaliation. Okay? This was absolutely 100% whistleblower retaliation. We have done so much investigating to see what did Richard do wrong, and we can't find it. He looks so good. That's why I have him as a saint behind me, because he looks so good. 80 subpoenas and warrants, and he is a yellow Interpol, But that didn't stop the command and the CID for acting even more cold-blooded, acting even more criminal, knowing they had found his dismembered remains. They decided to send a senior leader to the military police guard mount to make sure that the military police guard mount had their hypnosis eyes on there and only saw Richard as a really rotten person, because from that guard mount, the MPs were told what a rotten person Richard was, what a bad character he was. And Anthony Swafford believed him. He had his hypnotic eyes in, and he couldn't see anything else. And he even treated us like that when we questioned, where did you get that idea of Richard from? And is it proper for a military police to have that kind of attitude, that you would not want to find a missing soldier just because you thought his character was bad? Is that even proper? And in this case, it wasn't that anyway. But still, if you have a missing soldier, you find that missing soldier. And he, red flags should have went up when he was listening to the senior leader talk from the military police guard mount. Um, and he should have said, what's going on here? Um, they should be doing whatever they can to look for this soldier. It doesn't matter. So that is, yeah, that's just another one of these irregularities, this misinformation. You can put a label on it, but I call it cover up of a vicious murder. Cover up of a vicious murder because they didn't want the accountability, like Vanessa Guillen's case, like that produced at the sister installation, military installation of Fort Hood. And by the way, Fort Hood and Fort Bliss are under the same CID leadership. Okay, so that was Lieutenant General Donna Martin, and she came to El Paso to try to, with Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe, to control the narrative. And that's why they staged the task force find Richard Halliday. And she sat in the middle of the room on a chair, Indian style, in civilian clothes, y'all, without an op board, no intention to have Richard's back, to care for one of her service members, to get justice. No, she sat there to continue the rot, to continue the rot, to continue the pollution, to continue threatening our national security, damaging our national security. And I think that's treason. It's treason, and it's deserving of the death penalty. And we should put the death penalty square on the table for so many of these crimes in this case. Because you have to understand, if whistleblowers are being retaliated against and they're stripped of their protection, then rot and decay and pollution is allowed to, the corruption is allowed to take over our military, which is an absolute national security threat. So that is treason in my book, to put our country in such a position that we have sex cults and one suicide after the next, and PTSD, and you name it, all the rapes and all of the overdoses from illegal drugs, because they've turned our barracks into a marketplace for illegal drugs. So all of these irregularities are on purpose. They're on purpose, and they are on purpose to destroy our country, and that means it's treason. It's absolute treason. So, yeah, that's where I'm at, and I'll listen to them tomorrow. I've always been gracious in all of the meetings. I've always didn't, interrupt them, because I wanted to know what happened to my son, and let them have a chance. And so it won't be any different for me tomorrow, except for I won't be alone. We won't be alone. Rob and I won't be alone. And we have a plan forward besides them. We have a plan forward with them. It just depends on them now. So And I will be releasing tomorrow morning um, the new campaign with the media. We're going to start with El Paso Matters, and we're going to ask everyone to write a letter to the IRS about El Paso Matters breaking their tax exempt status because they become so political. They become political, uh, what do you call it? Biting dogs, political hit dogs. Um, and they haven't covered the stories because of not, you know, agreeing with the politics. And I know this because I talked to Miss Katurga. I talked to her on the phone, and she wasn't interested at all about our son's case, which she should be if she is neutral, if she's not biased. But she was very biased, and she hasn't called back. And, 1,004 days, give me a break. And all she wanted to do was be a political hit dog or whatever that's called, and that to destroy somebody that doesn't think quite political like she does, or what El Paso Matters wants, and that means that that's fine, but they should not have the tax exempt status. That is for to encourage non-bias reporting, non-bias journalism, and they have violated that. And so our next campaign will be to write a letter to the IRS, a complaint, and I'll release that tomorrow morning so that you could turn it in to them. You can be anonymous or you can write your name, and that they can be El Paso Matters, but that they will lose there. And everyone will know then that they are a biased newspaper outlet or news outlet, and that uh, and they just have to find a way to find funding from their biased who targeted readership. And that would be fair. That would be absolutely fair. But to use our designation of tax exempt for non-bias reporting, that is absolutely fraud. And that's why we're doing that, so that in the future, whoever does get a tax exempt status will be willing to cover everybody's very serious stories, newsworthy stories, and not be ignored. We've been ignored, we've been abandoned, and that's fine unless you're on that tax exempt status that says you're unbiased. So that's our new campaign, and we need that on the way forward, because our next steps require that that we have some unbiased reporting, right? We need some unbiased reporting. And you see what happened today with Fox News. They've become biased too because they just fired Tucker Carlson. But Tucker Carlson will find his way. He will find his way, and he will be able to tell about January 6th, which was a total hit job on innocent people, and innocent people are still suffering because of that. And so, and then what he was just saying about JFK, if the CIA could do what they did to JFK, and that was in 1960s, absolutely today with the internet and the progression of the corruption, the allowing the rot to fester, the rot to grow, the pollution to continue, then of course they could do this in Richard's case. And they absolutely tried to do it. But by the grace of God, absolutely by the grace of God, we We have figured it out. And they meant it for evil to make us the investigators of our son's case, but God meant it for good because uh, we have searched through bales of hay for those needles. It's been very, very hard work, but because of our love for our son, because of our dedication to our family, we have been blessed. God has exposed so much to us. So I hope that we can take those blessings and we can pass them on to others and other service members and stop some of the rot and the decay and the pollution that has happened. So absolutely pray for tomorrow. Okay, any other questions? Praying for your mom, your family, and praying. Thank you so much to pray for her. It was a tough day. Grace, thank you. Prayers for your mom and entire family. Thank you so much. Um, oh, okay, Grace, that's all right. And Marilyn, the situation is horrible. Our soldiers deserve better. Absolutely, absolutely. And if they can't get it right after Vanessa Guillen or after Lavina Johnson, I never forget Lavina Johnson and what she had to suffer through and her death, and what her family had to suffer through. Don't forget about that family, the Lavina Johnson family, in your prayers. Um, all these service members, there's so many. There's so many, y'all. Um, I'm just getting chills because this is really bigger than just Richard. And I think that Yvonne Rosales knew that. I think she did. And yeah, I think she knew it. So, so I just want to say I'll be back tomorrow and let you know how the meeting went, God willing. And thank you so much. And if you have any questions, and I want to say over and over and over again, we love you, and we are so grateful for the letters that you sent to the IG to get this to happen. Because without you, we're just abandoned. We're just and you didn't abandon us. So we thank you so much. And I can tell you this, the one thing I will say at the meeting tomorrow is I want the remains of my son so I can bury him. Okay? I want you to give me my son. So yeah. Okay, everyone. Thank you so much. Good night. And until